You're listening to the Accordion to Me podcast with Veronique Medrano. Hi, I'm Veronique, and on this week's episode, we chat with Corpus Christi National Award-winning food blogger and chef, Vianney Rodriguez. Rodriguez has authored 2 books, The Tex-Mex Slow Cooker and Latin Twist, as well as being featured on the Food Network, LA Times, and Southern Living, just to name a few, because there's a bunch and we would be here for an hour if I listed them all. Recently named the food editor for Texas Co-op Power magazine, we sit down with Vianney Rodriguez to discuss the power of food and culture according to her. The Accordion to Me podcast is sponsored by Cricket Wireless. Make the switch and join the Cricket Comunidad with me, Veronique. I just made the switch and I'm connected with family on both sides of the border, and I even got myself a new phone, a Moto G 5G. And trust me when I say, there's a reason that right now, while we're recording, the phone is on Do Not Disturb. Everyone is calling. Everybody. And Cricket removes the extra hassle of me worrying about the high bill from everyone and their grandmothers and their abuelas and their bisabuelas calling me to figure out what's going on. Where am I performing next? What am I doing? Did I eat enough? Did I take all my vitamins? All of that good stuff, all the family stuff, all of that. But they make it super easy to not worry about the added confusion of charges calling back and forth from the US and Mexico. Now the whole family can stay in touch. And trust me, they stay in touch. Now switch to Cricket and get 4 lines for $25 each per month, plus unlimited nationwide 5G that includes Mexico. It's just one reason why people who come to Cricket stay with Cricket.
Cricket may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Discounts vary per line. Cricket's 5G requires a compatible device and is not available everywhere. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See store for details.
I love an episode. Like right now. Yes, right now. Ahorita. Ahoritita. Thank you so much for coming, Vianney.
Thank you for having me. That intro. I love it.
Oh my God. And I think it's a concha. I'm probably wrong, but they look like little concha hearts, that little necklace that you have. I absolutely.
Yes, they're little Talavera hearts. I got it in Puebla when I went to Mexico.
Oh my God.
I was like, I have to have that. So
it is adorable.
Thank
I love
you.
it. It's like fashion.
Yes. We're out of the kitchen and we're dressed up. Dolled up.
No sweaty faces here. No steam, no hair going this way and that way.
Crazy.
My God, it's so wonderful to have you here. We have been talking online for quite some time. It's always funny. Like when you go from online friends to in real life, it's always like
I know you, but do I know you? You know? And then let's start talking. Right now we were talking before we even set up, and I was like, oh my gosh,
there's so much to talk about. So you have just such an ability to bring out the most unique things in Tex-Mex cooking. I was looking through a whole bunch of recipes, things that you have been, highlighted for. And so what I would like to ask is, how did you start? What was your first recipe that you ever made?
My first recipe that I've ever made, I think I was like 7 or 8. And I've always been drawn to la cocina. Like I don't consider myself a chef. I consider myself a cocinera, like a home cook. I've always been drawn to that because my mom and my abuelita just, I always say this, and I'll say this until the end of days, they created magic in the kitchen. Watching them in the kitchen, stirring, talking, laughing, and they were just moving so seamlessly. I was like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be in there. Tap me in. Tap
me in, man. Tap me in.
So I would be small, and I'd be like, can I help? And they'd be like, oh, mija, ahorita no. We're doing this. And I'd be like, Mom, can I help? ¿Puedo ayudar? Or whatever. And my grandmother would see me, and she would be like, bien, siéntate aquí, And she would give me like a little piece of empanada dough, and she would let me play with it. And she'd be like, así lo vas a hacer, le vas a poner, like if they were making pumpkin, la calabaza, she taught me how to roll it and pinch it. And from that moment on, I was smitten. Like I thought, this is amazing. I love it. It was just like this world what I wanted to be a part of. So I've always wanted to be a part of. I didn't know how I would make a career out of this. Like at the time I was going to college, I was small, then I went to college, and then I thought I was going to be a teacher, and found out I did not. It wasn't my calling. Shout out to all the teachers. I just wasn't for me. And then I got married and I had children, and my husband was in the military, and we were moving, and cooking stayed with me. You know, my mom would come stay with me during the pregnancies, and I'd be like, quiero fideo, quiero carne con papas, you know, and I would stand there in the kitchen with her and I would learn the recipes. And, you know, it never tastes quite like hers, but just the smell brings me the memory of her being with me.
Yeah, like I wish there was smell-o-vision.
Oh my gosh!
Like every time I see your videos, every time, like there's a lot of like YouTube now. It's almost like the renaissance of Mexican right now, and and Latinos, and so like the renaissance of Mexican cooking feels very much in the moment right now. But every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, I wish this was a 4D video or something. I want to.
Why have they not created that yet? Like, I want that in my social media, but I've just always been drawn to it. And at the time, you know, my husband, he had gotten out of the military. We were living here in Edinburgh, and he was going to school. And I was reading these blogs. And it was, you know, somebody from Michigan or someone from New York. And they were like, I made this beautiful bread and it reminded me of my grandmother. And they would tell the story. And, you know, my husband would get home and I'd be like, oh my God, she made this bread and it reminded her of her grandmother. And you know, they were storytelling. They were giving stories and memories through food. And I told my husband, I love this. And I would read and I would like think about it all day. And then he was just like, well, why don't you do it? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, why don't you share your food? You're always talking about these stories with your grandmother and your mother. And I thought, ay, Roy, you know?
It's like, oh, it's like I was just talking, okay? I was just speaking.
Are you crazy or whatever? And then he's like, no, I'm serious. This is your thing. You love food. And I thought, okay, you know? So then I start searching how to start a blog. And, you know,
I'm really curious, what year was this?
Way back in the day. I'm going on 14, 15 years of doing this.
So
it's like 2009.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Way.
No, but just thinking about that, because, you know, 2009, we're getting the Facebook, we're getting the blogs, like it wasn't WordPress at the time. It was some other.
It was Blogger. Yes.
Yeah. Blogger and Tumblr.
Yes.
And especially like we have a mutual, which is Puro Pinche.
Yes.
And
I love you, Puro Pinche.
Oh, I love you,
my girl.
And I always it feels like 2009 was like that time when people were really trying to figure out the internet, because it wasn't what it is now.
No.
What it is now, honestly, is just an entire
different space.
It's a different space.
Yes.
And there's a lot that comes with it. But at the time it was just so simple, and it was just like, let me get out there.
Let me be creative in some form or fashion.
And so in the 2009s, 2010s, we'll say, you know, you're doing that and you're trying to find a space. And how easy or how hard was that?
It was very hard because there wasn't that many Latinas doing it. There was hardly any of us. So I didn't feel like I had like a community, but I also felt no one was sharing, you know, like outwardly sharing how to do this. So I start, you know, find a WordPress, the free WordPress, name it. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to start, you know, I'm going to teach myself how to bake. So I called myself SweetLifeBake, living, cooking, my sweet life, cooking, baking, living my sweet life in Texas. So then I, you know, get the little logo, whatever, get my point and click, and I, you know, shoot frijoles, right? My abuelita's frijoles. I mean, the picture was horrible. I put it up and I put a little story, and I'm, you know, this is my grandmother, and I talk about my grandmother, how she made it, and I want to keep this recipe going for my daughters, and, you know, just a quick little story, hit publish. It goes off, you know, into the
interwebs, into the interworld.
So then I'm thinking, oh gosh, you know, well that felt great, you know? So then, you know, every day for the next week, I'd go and check on my little blog, and I'd be like, oh, no comments, no, nothing, or whatever like that. And the next week after that, I get an email, and it's like, oh my gosh, my tia used to make these for me, and I never took the time to write down the recipe. Thank you for sharing. And another day goes by, I get 2 emails. 5 emails, 25, 75. And it was like, do you have a recipe for this? Do you have a recipe for this? My abuelita made these. I want to make them. Thank you for sharing. And I told Roy, maybe I'm onto something here. So then I get onto Facebook, and I'm thinking, like, you know, looking for anything that I can find of Latina bloggers. Lo and behold, I find this tiny little Facebook group. There's maybe like 12 girls in there. They're all Latinas, and they're all trying to help each other start blogging. And then I was like, I asked, you know, can I join? get in there, man, the wealth of knowledge these women had shared, supported, lifted, that I was just like, I can do this. So little by little, all of us, 12 now, so many years later, I think maybe there's like 4 of us left from that turned it into a full-time job. So I started sharing and sharing and sharing. And I want to say 6 months into the blog, Maseca reaches out to me. And I thought, Maseca? Oh my gosh. I mean, that's, something I've always had in my pantry. And I got my first job with Maseca. And then I thought, oh, I can get paid to do this. So then like the wheels start churning. I'm thinking, so the more I started sharing, and every time I shared, it was something related to my family, to my mom, to my abuelita, to my tia, to Roy, to my kids. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And it just took off. And it turned into something I never thought that I wanted, but it was exactly what I needed. This was my calling.
So here's what's funny about that is that mimics so much like my own experience with sharing my paintings. So I was always like, a lot of people don't know this, but throughout most of my life, I was either drawing or painting along with the music. And there's a lot of different aspects of me. I'm just a complex artist. Like when I say I'm an artist, I literally mean it.
Artist, yes.
I do a lot, and I get into something, and it just kind of just comes naturally.
Yes.
It's so to me, it's so strange because it's so natural to me to do something. And to me, cooking is very artistic.
Yes.
And so it wasn't until like a fellow, like Tejano artist, Shelly Lattis, we were doing an event here in, I think it was Westlaco and Edinburgh. And we did an event out here, and I brought her down, and then we're having lunch, and she goes, "You paint?" And I showed her my painting. She's like, "You need to share this. You can make money from this." And it was the first time I'd ever started doing like art shows, like not even art walks, art shows. And I was like, wow. And I'm still painting now, and I'm getting right back into it again, because
it's a creative outlet.
It's a creative outlet, but like for a little while, like I was just I just had my own things going on that I was like, I can't devote that much energy to this when I'm just trying to stay sane.
Yes.
And so it's interesting when we talk about that, because sometimes all it takes is somebody or a community of people, or just people telling us, hey, this is valid.
Yes.
And this
you have a voice.
You have a voice. Share it.
You have a story. Your story's worth it. And at the time when I started, I didn't know what I was getting into. My kids were small. My husband was in graduate school. He had just left the military. I was homeschooling both of my girls. So I didn't know what I was getting into. I was shooting in the restroom, in our little bathroom in our apartment, with a little light box set up at 3 a.m, because that's the only time I had after I had schooled them, fed them, played with them, given them their time, my husband, then I would be like, oh, now it's time to work. So I would, because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it 100%, and I'm going to see where it takes me. So I would shoot 3 a.m, stay up to like 4, write my little story, hit publish, and then I'd go and I'd sleep for a couple hours, wake up the next day, and then I'd be just like, what can I make this day, So it was a lot of hard work. It's still hard work. It's a full-time job, but I just thought, if I'm going to do this and I enjoy it, I'm just going to go 100%. I'm going to see where it takes me, and my voice is my voice. I'm going to share my abuelita, my mom, everything, and it's giving me so many opportunities and so many blessings that it just makes me appreciate la comida más,
Yeah. So, Adán Medrano.
Yes.
Oh, loved his documentary.
Yes.
But it shined like Adán Medrano, Chulas Fronteras. I have recently realized how much cooking means to Mexicanos and Latinos, and how much I have missed in my life. At any point, did you feel that you had stepped far from the food, and that this kind of work kind of fulfilled that cultural space within you?
I think so. I think it's always been about sharing my family, our culture, our heritage, our past, and I want to make sure that our past goes on into the next generation. So I think it's always been that, and it's always been like, I'm not a professional writer. So when I write, it's going to be in my voice. So I'm like, pero le puedes poner esto, y'all. You know, it's like a mix or whatever. I just want it to stay true to myself, but I feel like the more I share, the more I tap into my culture and my heritage and more of these feelings that sometimes I share something, I'm thinking, it takes me back to when I was like 10, you know, and we had gone through something in our family and we were at the table and my mom's, you know, serving us dinner and we're talking through what had happened. So it's very powerful. So I feel like the more I share, sometimes it heals me and sometimes maybe it'll touch someone else. So it's a lot of things, I think.
And so what happened?
What had happened? We had gone through something very personal, very hard in our family, and it just took us by shock. Like we lost one of my grandparents out of nowhere, and I was at a very young age where we had just seen him. You know, like we had just
like just the other day or just hours before.
Yeah, the other day we were already making plans to go see him, and it just out of nowhere. And I had never seen my mom break down the way she broke down. It was her father. She was really close to him, so she had been making dinner, and we were talking and. She was talking us through, and it was the first, you know, death I had experienced, and I remember, you know, like we were eating sopita de fideo con papas. So the other day I was sharing something, and I don't know what it was, and then I thought, oh my gosh, I was this age when this happened, and this is what I was eating. That's my personal attachment to this dish. So sometimes it's like this full circle moment, and you're thinking, my God, food is so powerful that you don't stop to think how many different etapas food touches in your life. Like it's just there all the time. I'm crying now. Like it just touches it's with you from birth until death. You celebrate with food, you mourn with food. You just like it's in every aspect.
Yeah, that like I'm gonna give you a second.
You know, it's just
you know, it's interesting that you say that because even the most, I say I am the humble kitchen sometimes because I have done a few things with ramen noodles, Maruchan, and in such a way that it was like, one of the dishes that I remember got me in the newspaper, and I remember it to this day. And then every time I go into my mom's house, like my mom loves to cook. Like, yes, she'll order stuff sometimes if she just doesn't want to cook for that many people, but that's her only excuse. Like, but it's something about like, I had the opportunity with, I'm trying to remember the company, but Mando. I had the opportunity with Mando to do, you know, a stripes kind of series.
Yes. Which was amazing.
And it was, but the biggest thing for me is I had done a pitch video about tortillas, talking about my grandmother's tortillas and the smell, and that you know that a tortilla is good if it has that dust, the tortilla dust. And so then Mando sends me a message back. And he says, you know, we loved it, and marketing for Stripes loved it. Laredo Taco Stripes. They're part of the same damn company, but you know what I mean? Like that division really liked the video, but they would love to see a video of you cooking with your grandmother. And I said, okay. So me and grandma are doing this video and I am messing it up, but she is the sweetest woman in the world. I said, mine's in the shape of Texas. Like I felt like that scene with Charlie Brown where it's like, I got a pear, I got this, I got a rock.
But you made it.
Yes,
but
I did.
You made the tortillas.
I mean, I got a rock. So, so I made it very weird shaped, but it was that moment. And so they could see me and my grandmother, you know, interacting, and she was so nervous. Let me be clear. But now, you know, Mando took some real beautiful photos while we were doing that, and then posted them up. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if I take this photo? Because it shows my hands with her hands kind of making the rolls.
Yes.
And something about that, like, I'm going to be able to keep that forever.
Yes.
And the project itself, like, I get to keep that forever.
Yes.
And, you know, my grandmother's 90 and she looks great. Yeah. Like, she had just had her birthday days before the shoot. So, like, that was her, like, celebration. We got her a makeup artist.
Nice.
I went all out for her.
Of course, you have to.
And she was just happier than punch, man. Like, all the relatives, the Gonzalez side of the family were like, oh my God, Tere, eres famosa. Like, and then people thought that she was fake. that she was a grandmother. Like, she was so good.
They thought she was not your grandmother?
Yeah, that she was an actress.
Oh my gosh,
hired to be my grandma. And I'm like, Grandma, do you realize they think you're fake? Like, you're
Put
a
her
fake
in a
grandma.
telenovela.
Exactly. And so it's something I get to keep, but that smell, like that smell of going in the house and smelling
that memory.
That chorizo.
Anytime you smell that particular tortilla or chorizo, you're going to remember that.
Exactly. And it's just those things you really can't take. There's like, I wish there was 4D. I wish there was smell-o-vision so that, you could just really get that. But it almost feels spiritual how connected Mexicanos and Latinos, I mean, people of color are very connected to their food, and it's very clear why.
Yes.
Because there's something very rooted in our food compared to other food.
Yes. And
has
it's
no seasoning.
also the food that your abuelitos made, your parents made, and it's not extravagant, platillos. They're comida casera. They're made with what you have in hand, what's in season, and they just, those are the dishes that like touch my heart. Like, it could be, my abuelita and my mom were migrant workers. They picked the field, they worked the field. So my mom was always very aware of what was in season, what wasn't, and we only ate seasonally. So it would be like if she had, and then she had a garden in the back. She was an avid gardener. She would grow these wild blackberries, tomatoes. That's why a lot of people are like, wow, you feature blackberries a lot in your website. And I thought, blackberries are here. They're in my heart.
Like, they are in my stomach. they have rooted themselves there.
So it's just something that always ties back to the family, to the memory, and I want all of these recipes because maybe you didn't have that time or opportunity with your tia or your abuelita or your dad to cook that recipe. But you know what? Here's my gift to you. Try it at home, make it your own. I always say I'm the guideline, and then you take that recipe and you make it your own, because maybe I like cumin and you don't. Maybe I like cilantro and you don't. But if your tia made it and then you start tweaking it and it turns from my recipe into your tia's recipe, then that is what I'm here for. That's what I want to give you.
So speaking of recipes, what is the worst thing you've ever eaten, and how did you fix it for yourself?
The worst thing I've ever eaten? You know what? This is so strange, but if you give me like a box, like of macaroni or rice-a-roni or
anything,
I will burn it and I will destroy it, and it just does not come out right. I don't know what it is. I can't. My kids, when they were little, my nieces would make these little pizza bagel things, and my kids were like, we had them at Tia's house. Can we have them? And I'm thinking, okay, I'll let you try them. Burn them. I would burn them. I don't know if it's
crime against pizza bagel.
I just don't know if I don't, like, I'm so used to start to finish that it's sitting in the oven that I forget about it or whatever. I just cannot do those to save my life. And my sister, when we lived together, we used to run a little apartment in San Antonio. We lived off of rice-a-roni and suddenly pasta salads or whatever, because that's all she could cook at the time. And I love them, but I just can't make them. I just can't make them.
You're like, instant is instantly not going to turn out well.
Burn it all. It's just like, I don't know what it is. But
it's funny because my favorite I burned something story was in college, speaking of which, and it was I was living in the college dorms at UTB, and I had a roommate. But they had just left. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I need to make something quick. So I put again, ramen noodles. I know I said I was really good at it. Let me tell you, there was a horror story with ramen noodles. So I was just going on little to no sleep. I was going on little to no sleep. And then suddenly I'm like, just shoved it in there, pressed the 2 button.
Yeah.
Oh, let me try this again. This story, see, it's like I can taste the smoke in the air. I'm having I can taste the burn. So I'm sure y'all know where this is going, because what happened is I put it in.
You hit
2 minutes,
but
no water.
Oh,
so
I
didn't realize.
That smell.
No, I didn't realize it. Number 2, I didn't realize it was flammable. Number 3, I didn't realize it was flammable in a microwave.
Oh my gosh.
And number 4, my dumb ass didn't put water in it. Water. And so I see smoke. I'm like, ah!
Oh my gosh.
And
that could have been very bad.
I mean, it could have been, but I grabbed it, pulled it out, ran, mind you, the beautiful thing about how dorms work and how they're situated is there was a sink not that far away. And I'm just like, put the water on. Oh, I'm dying. And I was like, never again. Always check for water. I mean, I woke up. I was half asleep. I was fully awake.
Smell, yeah. Like when you burn a bag of popcorn. Oh my gosh.
That is,
it upsets me because you know how you want that popcorn and you can sit down and then you burn it and then that smells just in the kitchen. I'm like, Vianney, you would. You would.
Well, the other, another smell that's just awful, and everyone knows what, I'm sure everyone can guess what this is going to be, is fish from a microwave.
Oh my gosh. Fish in general, if you fry it or it's very... stays.
It stays. I'm like, why? Why do you linger, little fish? Why?
You're so delicious.
You're so delicious, but you smell like butt.
You've been here 2 days. It's time for you to go.
I am no longer crave you. I have made a decision and it was incorrect.
So funny.
But it's interesting how smells really do engage with our olfactory center, the burning, stuff like that, college. So tell me a little bit about the time that you were with your sister, because you're saying she used to make instant stuff and that those things changed. So tell me a little bit about that time in your life.
She was going to San Antonio College, community college. I was living with her. I was going to high school there. I finished my senior year there and we were working. We had an apartment and I was pretty much going to school, going to work, going home, going to school, going to work. It was just we were just, that's another reason I love a 99-cent Totino's oven pizza, because I get home and my sister would be like, here you go. And I'd be like, even now, when I tell my daughter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel off. And she's like, Mom, I will go get you a 99-cent Totino. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you. It just gives that nostalgia.
You know what? That flat.
It just it's not good.
It's good. It's so bad that it's good.
Yes,
it's so bad. You're just like, what in the ever loving hell?
It just lifts me. It just reminds me of my youth, and it just lifts me. And I'm like, you can do this.
If you be like this pizza, live another day.
It will heal you.
What really drove me nuts is that when Chuck E. Cheese then put their pizzas into the freezer, selling, and I was like, oh yes, I live.
I can take it home.
Oh my God, I can take it home. But yes, that pizza is the holy grail of cheap pizzas.
It was just one of those things. I would get home from work and I'd be so stinking tired I hadn't eaten, and then she's like, Mika, Bonnie, I made you dinner, and it was like a little pizza, and I'd be like, thank you so much. But it was just a time that year where we were just working, hustling, going to school. So she would grab easy stuff and pasta salad, rice-a-roni, and she would, we were eating, who knows if we were eating healthy, we had no veggies, we were just living through the moment. But now we look back and we laugh and we think it's funny.
Oh yeah.
And they're good times,
And here's what's funny about that is there's certain food that you have in college that just kind of stays with you, but the most deceptive food.
Yes.
We
did a lot of late night Taco Cabana runs too.
Oh,
so it was just.
I was horrible. I didn't have Taco Cabana because I was here in the Valley. So we did late night Taco Palenque, and on 10th.
Oh gosh,
because you have been, and the reason I mentioned that specifically is because you were in Edinburgh, and I was living in Edinburgh in 2011. So in 2011, 2012, I did not understand why kids at my school. So I was at UTB, but some of the people from UTB were from the McAllen, Edinburgh area, whatever, or they would go out there to party. So just FYI, it's just there's a 10th Street in Austin, there's a 17th Street here. Yes. Every college city or areas with college have one street
where all the good food's at.
Where all the food's at, where everyone gets drunk, and then they go somewhere at 2, 3 in the morning because it's a 24-hour place. That is what Taco P on 10th was. So and they have not updated the way they look.
And they don't need to.
And they don't need to.
They don't need to.
From what I understand, Paquita del Barrio ate there. So they never have to do a damn thing.
It's good for Paquita.
It's good for me.
Yes. Yes.
If it's good for Paquita, it's good for us.
Paquita,
okay.
seal of approval, we're there.
Exactly. And so it's just so crazy. Like there's certain like I am drunk foods. And so what is your favorite food to have like at night munchies?
I love me a good sour cream and onion tin of Pringles. Like,
wow,
and it's very rare when we were little that my mom was where we grew up, we lived in Aransas Pass, Texas. We were there, born and raised there. There wasn't a lot of, I think there was like a Whataburger and there was like a Churchie's. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't like a lot of fast food. There wasn't a lot of, so we weren't going, we were not going to these fast food places. We were not going, to Corpus into town to eat. She made everything at home. So when we'd go to H-E-B and she'd be like, oh, get whatever you want. I was like drawn to like these, like these little, cylinders of like, there's chips in there, So that's just always been my little thing. Even like on a road trip, if we're on a road trip, my husband already knows, let me get off and get her a Slim Jim and a little thing of Pringles. And that's just, just something nostalgic from my childhood.
Oh, nice.
But I mean, if you've had, one too many, it helps to, helps to soak up all that
Pringles,
stuff.
soak it up. Yeah. Soak it up with a Pringle.
Yes, future Accordion sponsor.
There we go. I'm like, first we had Burlington Coat Factory. I don't know how many brands have been mentioned over this podcast. So I'm like, bruh.
So what is yours? Yours?
Oh my God. I am really trying to think what, oh man, I'm so trash. It used to be I hate myself for saying this. I'm like, I don't have the courage. Jack in the Box dollar tacos.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is. I suffered the next day. Let's believe. Like
we went from
Pringles.
No, we went from Palenque
to that. Well, the thing is that like when I was in Edinburgh, yes, we were out there. It would be like we would stop by Taco P. But when I went to San Antonio,
it's totally different.
It's totally different. I was not introduced to Mama Margie's yet. I was not introduced to Mama Margie's yet, so please, San Antonio people, chill. I wasn't introduced to Taco Bell. I was a vehement hater.
Yes.
For Taco Bell.
I've never gotten into it. It's not something that calls to me.
Well, here's the thing is that, again, I said I was a vehement hater of Taco Bell, but it was like while I was in San Antonio, really like that first year or two, because I was there for 4 years, that first year or two, it was literally Jack in the Box. It was down the street from where I was living. It was convenient.
It was open 24 hours.
Literally. And so boom.
Yeah.
But then it became like I entered my vieja age, and then after 25, suddenly you go, I don't want to be out till 1. I don't want to have to take care of the random dude on shrooms.
Yes.
Like there's so many things.
You need to get home early.
Like I wanted to get home early, and so it eventually became La Palapa.
Oh, La Palapa is good. La Palapa is
so
good.
like it was their bean and cheese.
Yes.
Their bean and cheese taco.
Love a bean and cheese.
Their their soup. Their
soup.
Their chicken tortilla. Oh, that for me, as soon as I had it once, like after late night.
You had me at bean and cheese. You had me at bean and cheese.
Had me at bean and cheese.
I love a really good tortilla with bean and cheese. Oh, I love it.
Like there's something about it. It's a very San Antonio thing. Yeah. I will say that. Like the bean and cheese taco is not a thing, at least in my opinion. I used
to take those to lunch.
Like everywhere.
So that was my lunch. It didn't have cheese. It was just a bean taco for lunch every day.
Was it regular bean or bean and chorizo?
It was just regular smashed refried beans, and I would take it. And every day I would see the other kids, and I'd be like, I want a bologna sandwich. I want a ham and cheese sandwich. And And I would tell my mom, well, why can't we have those, you know? And she's like, esto es lo que tenemos en la casa, esto es lo que vas a comer. So that, okay.
You're like, trade.
Yeah, I started trading. That was the mistake. Word got around, and every day I had someone trying to switch my lunch. Come to find out, Vianney doesn't like ham and cheese, but she wanted her beans back.
Damn.
So
that was just buyer's remorse to such a degree.
To the point where the teacher of the class I was in that year, we had like bring your parents to class, you know, and she was like, is there any chance your mom can come to the classroom and make tortillas, flour tortillas? And I was like, I'll ask her. And I told my mom, and my mom was like, okay. And I was so nervous for my mom because this is something very personal that my mom makes every day. She's been making flour tortillas since she was 10 years old with my grandparents. So I was very nervous for her, also because we were in a predominantly white school. There wasn't a lot of Latinos. So when she showed up to the classroom with her comal and her little burner and she started talking, I thought, oh my God, I was like, Virgencita, cuídamela. Like, I was so nervous for her.
So like protective.
Yes, I was so protective because I was protecting her. I was protecting my home because now my home was coming into my classroom. Then she was bringing our tortilla, her. And I was so nervous. And then she started speaking to the class. She started rolling the tortilla, working with the masa, putting them on the comal, and instantly I saw like that magic that I would see in my grandmother and her, and all the kids were around her and they were asking her questions and they were like so enamored with her. And I thought at that moment, I was like, why was I worried? She just shined. Like, it was, even now I have people that were in my class like, do you remember when your mom came and made tortillas? And I thought, I do, but I was so proud of her when we left. And she was like, why were you worried? She was just like, why were you worried? But it was just so personal to me that I didn't want anyone to not think it was amazing. And she just killed it. She freaking killed it. And I'm so proud of her for that.
Do you feel that concern came from a deeper place?
I think it was knowing.
Especially like given the time.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's predominantly white kids, knowing the environment that you're in, like you'll probably scrap with the entire class.
Yes. And I will scrap for my mom. You want to meet in the recess? I am there. Like, I was the kid in class that when it was Mexican Day, the teacher would be like, oh, I have this book. Can you read this? Oh, Vianney, come read this. And I could read it. And, they'd be like, oh, okay. So bringing her into the classroom, I didn't want anyone to shame her. I didn't know how people would take her or how they would react to her. And at the time, and she walked in and she was just like, I'm here, and I was so proud of her. And I still tell her to this day, do you remember that one? And she's like, yeah, that was so much fun. Like, she thought she didn't have 1 ounce of the worry that I did. And I was young at the time because I was also the one calling the doctor's office. I was a translator. The mail would come and I'd be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, and so I would you're always in that protection mode, Yeah.
Like for me, speaking of like parents and like that first initial like OMG moment, for me, it was getting into the newspaper. So I was going to a private school at the time, and I guess like the newspaper, the Bronzeville Herald, would do this Kids Speak is what it's called.
Okay.
And it was a section in the back of the education section, which would be every other Wednesday or every Wednesday. Yeah. And in the back of it, kids would write in for different prompts. And so I had been writing, and they didn't ever pick me until they were like, tell us like your favorite recipe from home and describe how you make it. And so it was migas, just egg, cut up tortilla, boom. And so my mom kept the little sliver of that. I love and that. And I was just over the moon. And it was my first time sharing that. And other people had different stuff, and mind you, we're a predominantly, Mexican area, we're here on the border, but it was just the fact that I was able to share that at all that just absolutely made me so happy. And so for you, you're on the blog, you're sharing this stuff. It's right there in the 2010s-ish.
Yes.
And things are starting to move along and you get that sponsorship. But at any point, was there a lull? At any point, was there something difficult that it was just like, okay, I have to reassess how I engage with making this stuff daily? Because you're doing it at about 3 a.m.
Yes.
There's a lot going on.
Yes.
You're burning, there's no 2 ends, there's 4, and it's around the clock, and it feels like a lot. So what happened at that point?
I want to say the first 3 years of the blog, it was nonstop. Every day I was creating something. Weekends, holidays, I was, you know, they would go, oh, they'd be watching a movie. I'd be back here, you know, tinkering with the blog or taking photos and trying to, because everything, food is very visual. So like a bowl of beans, like you have to make it visually appealing because people eat with their eyes first.
Yes.
Then they read the story and then the recipe and then that wants, you know, them to make it. So the first 3 years I was just like non-stop. And then there was a point in time where I was like, it was becoming too much. I had several brands, you know, sponsorships. I was an ambassador. I had a newspaper article at the local. I used to write for the, I used to send stuff to the McAllen when we were here.
The Monitor.
Yes, the Monitor.
Oh my God,
I
okay.
had little interviews and I had a series on there, and it was becoming to the point where I couldn't do it all. And Roy was telling me, my husband was like, estás haciendo mucho, you know, you're not going to be able to keep this up. What do you want to do? And at that time I had to kind of pivot and say, I need to bring help in.
Okay.
So I brought in somebody to help me with social media, because that in itself
is a lot.
I had someone come in and help me manage my brand deals, because when you start a brand deal, it's, you know, back and forth, the dance. I always call it the dance, and you do the dance of numbers and what do you need from me and what can we do, or how can I make sure you don't change my voice, because I'm very big with that. Like, I want to be able to, if you found me and you think my content is great, then when I share with your brand, I want to share it in the same voice. I don't want you to change my voice, because then it's not authentic to me. So, and then it's like contracts, legal contracts that are just like days and days. So I thought, you know, I need someone to come in and help me with that. I met someone from that group and they were like, yeah. So that in itself she was in charge of that, talking to the brands. And as soon as I shifted to where my talent is the food, my talent is the recipes, it just took on, I got bigger opportunities, because I wasn't worrying about all the little things. And I could, again, take time on the stuff that I would do on the weekends. They were handling that. I got my weekends back. I'm very big on my weekends. I want my weekend to be with my husband, my daughters. I want to sleep in.
Or Bobby Pulido.
Yeah, I want those weekends for myself. And it just helped me. I invested in myself, and I was able to grow more that way. So now I've got quite a big team. I've got dedicated person from Pinterest. I have someone who helps me manage my brands. I have a full-time photographer. I have a videographer. I have 2 kitchen assistants. Of course, I have my daughter who works. She shoots all my reels and
that's wonderful,
stuff like that. So, and then so
she's involved. So like your kids are involved
Both
now.
of my daughters have been very involved. My husband does all the building, the construction, anything we need moved. Like if we do events, I used to do a lot of events. I used to do some wedding cocktail catering. Like I've done it all, a little bit of everything. And it's always been a family affair. And now I've got a team, and, you know, they help me, you know, and I can concentrate on what I wanted to share from the beginning until now, the food. It's always about the food at the end of the day.
So did you ever think back then that you would have this little cooking empire with your family?
Never. This was a creative outlet for me when I started, because at the time I was a stay-at-home mom. I was homeschooling both of my girls. My husband was going to school, working full-time. I needed something creatively. I was losing myself into my family. And that's not a bad thing.
No, but it brings up something interesting, because a lot of parents, people with new family, big family, it comes up a lot that women are just there.
Yes.
They are there. They are giving not 100%, you know, 120%.
Yes.
Like there's a lot that gets given. And so how did you manage to have your individuality while also being a parent? Was this it? Was this the way to do it?
This was my little part of me where I was going to be selfish, and this is for me, all about me, about my memories, about my abuelita, my mother. This is my little part, and I'm going to take this. And when it started growing, we had a conversation. I've always been very upfront with my family. I'm like, I think this is going to turn into something, and I want to really go for it. Are you with me? Are we going to do this? Okay. You know, because sooner or later, everyone would be involved. And my husband's like, do it. This is your thing. My husband has always been, what do you need from me? How are we going to do it? Or even on the days where I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, you know, pull up los calzones. Let's get going. Do you need a Totino's pizza?
Yes, Totino's pizza for the win.
So it's always been, I've always been very upfront, and I'm very good at, there's certain things I want to accomplish, and I've pretty much accomplished all of them. That's why when this food editor position came up, that was not even in my scope.
I was about to say, that felt like you were like, I have something to tell y'all. And I'm like, girl, it better be a Food Network show or something, because you were having me like.
It was not even in my scope. I had not even put that on my list, because you know, like everyone has their
vision board,
their bucket list. And I've hit pretty much, even if I don't hit it all the way, I've hit somewhere, and I'm happy with that. I'm very grateful for all the doors food and frijoles and comida has opened for me. And I never take anything for granted, because at the end of the day, it always goes back to that bowl of frijoles. That bowl of frijoles is where I started, and that bowl of frijoles will be there until I decide to, ya se acabó esto, you know?
You're listening to the Accordion to Me podcast, made possible by listeners like you, rating and reviewing the pod. All you have to do is leave some stars and a quick blurb about what you enjoy about the Accordion to Me podcast. It helps the algorithm gods raise us to higher heights. We are all cogs in the machine of the algorithm gods. Make us go to number 1. Leave a review, damn it. Resistance is futile. Wait, what? It's so beautiful that a bowl of frijoles changed your life.
Started everything. And if you follow me, if you've been following me, every week I say I'm a frijolera till I die, because my mom every Monday made a pot of beans. Every Monday, and my grandmother did that too, made a pot of beans, and we knew during the week we're going to have carne con papas, con frijoles, tacos of frijoles. You know, it was always a staple. And people are like, oh, frijoles? Have you researched frijoles are high in fiber, high in protein? They're like a health food, you know?
Well, it's interesting, because a lot of the times when people look at Mexican food,
yes,
they always, there's this weird connotation of the food being fatty,
yes,
being not good for you, being unhealthy.
And that is so wrong.
And tell me how.
It is just so wrong, because I think a lot of people, when they say, like me, I'm Tejana. I identify as Tejana. So the food I share is, of course, Mexican, but I also share Tex-Mex. But when I mean Tex-Mex, I mean a mix of Texas and Mexican. That doesn't mean, you know, cheddar cheese, sour cream. Of course, I love that. I share that. But it's also what I grew up eating.
I love why you're saying that, because that is very true. When people think of Tex-Mex,
yes,
a lot of the times they think of, and I'm just going to be blunt, they think of white people, yes, North Texas, yes, food mixed with, yes, Mexican food.
Where I live and where we're at now was Mexico before. This was Mexico before. My family was here. There's, you know, nopales, frijoles, citrus. I mean, citrus came later. You know, there's the lemons. There's that's what I grew up in. So that's what I share. So when I say Tex-Mex, I think people confuse it, and they're like, oh, she's going to give us Frito pie or whatever. Like, no,
yes,
it's Texas and Mexico food together. So to me, it's lentejas, nopales, you know, papitas, you know, and it's very casera food, but it's very nutrient. You know, it's not greasy. It's not, of course, we have our flautas, and sometimes I fry the flautas. You know what? Today, I'm going to bake them. You know, there's an option, yes, for everything.
There is.
There is.
And like, speaking into that, you know, you are one of the few women that's up there with some of the biggest names, Adán Medrano, Jose, like all of these different people. Like there's a whole like thing that they just did recently.
I was there, and
it's mind blowing to see.
It blew my mind.
See a woman like yourself really championing for South Texas food, because South Texas food is very border influenced.
But it does not get the recognition it deserves. South Texas food compared to other parts of the Texas, it's delicious food that began with women. And Adan was very...
That documentary really...
And when I saw that, and I thought and then I got in that room with all the other chefs from all over I was the only one that wasn't a chef. I don't consider myself a chef. My daughter graduated from the Culinary Institute of America. She works in Austin. She's like, Mom, you've been doing this so long. You're considered a chef. And I told her, no, baby, I'm a cocinera. What I cook is comida casera. I was surrounded by all these talented people, and they are doing amazing things. We're all doing amazing things. And at the end of the day, we're all sharing the food we grew up with. So I loved it. I loved every minute. I loved all the discussions, the panels, the documentary. Adan is amazing. So I was very, truly honored to be a part of that.
And for me, it really speaks to the fact that you champion for the caseras.
Yes.
That really, you have a space and a platform and you champion the food.
Yeah. Because when I grew up and my abuelita grew up and my mom grew up, who was in the kitchen? It's all the women together, the tias, amigas, neighbors across the street. My mom, we lived in Aransas. She had her kitchen full. All the neighbors would come in over, what are we doing? She'd be cooking, everything. It was always the women. So to me, it was always a safe place where all the women were at. ¿Qué te pasa, mija? ¿Por qué tienes esa cara? ¿Qué te hizo ese hombre? ¿Qué te hizo ese muchacho? It was always this safe place, and everything growing up, even now, everything revolves around food for me, and it's just always been the women. I feel like, I even said it at the conference, my mom is my greatest inspiration. The way she cooks, the way she worked, the way she provided for us, she's my greatest inspiration.
And speaking of that inspiration, what is it that you hope to impart to people in regards to cocina casera?
I think I want people, at the end of the day, I want people to go into the kitchen and I want them to not be afraid. I want them to go in and say, you know what, I want to make my tia's rice. I want to make carne guisada. I want to make tacos, flautas, or whatever. I want to give them the confidence to go into the kitchen, because once you start to cook and you taste your food and it tastes good, that gives you such a confident boost. And then once you start to cook and you invite people over and you serve people and they're like, this is great, and there's conversation and there's, doors open. I feel like food opens so many doors of communication and then I want to feed everybody. I want to invite everybody over.
Oh my God, yes.
You. Oh God, you look, estás triste, let me hacerte una sopita, I want people to feel confident. I want people to, in turn, the confidence to make that fideo or those beans, and I want them to be reminded of their family. I want their home to smell like their home smelled growing up. I just want to impart that,
Well, it's such a wonderful sentiment where we're talking about food and how it communicates to people. So what are your favorite turns of phrases in regards to food, or little words that ends up being something that people say when it comes to food?
Like what?
One of them is when you get salsa, y está bien picante, and you're like, alguien le enojó. Alguien le hizo bien enojado.
Yes.
The food tastes angry, or the salsa tastes angry. And there's the only way I could say it is it's a turn of phrase, but it's so much more nuanced than that. And I'm sorry for anyone who's like, well, that's not what that is. I get it, but the words are very much like water for chocolate, like agua para chocolate.
Well, we always had that. My grandfather used to say, panza llena con corazón contento, or atasquete ora cae lodo, o plato limpio. So it was always these things. And as a child, he's like, plato limpio. And I'm like, I cannot eat all the food.
I will die.
I don't think he meant it like that. I think, plato limpio, your grandmother took the time, to cook this. She's making it especially for you. Try it, And we were not raised like,
picky eaters.
Picky. No. You're gonna, what we have today is what you're gonna try or whatever. So it was always those, and I have a big sign in.
Yeah. Chicken nuggets, my butt.
So I have a few of his phrases in my kitchen, and I just love them because he was always He was always so, like my mom and my grandma would be in the kitchen and he would walk in and he'd be like, ¿qué están haciendo? Déjame probarlo. And he would like sneak a little taste. So
that was always the thing. There was always some guy coming into the kitchen,
like, let me try
grabbing a bite of something before, like it wasn't even done yet. Yeah. Like, bruh.
But it was so cute because my grandma would be like, go over there. And then, they do the little ojitos and everything, but it was cute. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's I remember that so clearly. Like you just brought up somebody going to the kitchen. It was either me or my uncle, and because we were kind of like just the outliers, like we would sneak in to grab something, and they'd be like, like little like
a little pre-taste,
like
pre-dinner,
and then run away. Exactly. I'm like, like my biggest memory with Mexican food and just Mexican cuisine, like in regards to how visual it was, because you say, you eat with your eyes, and you really do, especially with content. And I hate calling it content. I really do, because content feels like it strips away a lot of what it is.
Yes. Which it strips away the personal side of it.
Exactly.
Because you're sharing something very personal.
Exactly.
Like, I'm inviting you into my sacred space.
Yeah.
My kitchen is my sacred space. I'm inviting you in. I'm showing you. My children are around, my dogs. Like people know my dogs. People ask like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I saw your husband in the background. There's a Roy sighting, they tell me, or, like, because he does not like social media. He doesn't like that aspect. He knows what I do, but they'll catch him in the wild and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's so
catch
funny.
him in the wild.
They become so invested in your life.
I'm just giving you an idea. He should do like a Bigfoot sighting.
He's just in the corner like that. He's in the back when the tamales are coming out.
I know, or he has like a spoon. He's like, oh.
It's so funny. It's just, it is what it is. It's content. And,
it is, but it's just, and when I was talking about that, it's just like, there's so much of you and so much of your personality. Yeah. And so how do you keep from burning out? What is advice that you give for building the content? Because you were saying there's a point when you have to bring other people in.
Yes.
And I mean, that's such a loaded thing to even discuss, because a lot of the times, creating things for the internet is it's a full-time thing. And number two, it's like, when did you realize that you could bring other people on? Was it that there was enough finances to do that? Like where was it like, okay, I'm ready?
It became one of those things where, do I want to invest in this long term? Do I want to take this to the next level, to the next couple of levels? And it took me a while because I'm very hands-on everything. So it was a little hard to let some of that go. But then as soon as I did, it took more off my plate and I was able to do the fun stuff. Like, I like to create the content, but if I don't feel good that day or I'm not feeling at my best, I never want to get on and be like, well, this happened and this. I don't want to there's so much going on now, and I feel like we ingest a lot of news and a lot of social content, and I feel like everybody is trying to make it through the day. Everybody's trying to protect their babies. Everybody's trying to work, and that I never want to come on and just bring people down. Mm-hmm. Like, if I want to come on, I want to come on happy. I want to come on positive. I want to come like, today I want to show you how to make this, or today I shared this, or look at this beautiful plate I bought.
Because it's so easy to tell.
Yes.
Like, because it's such a visual format, it is so easy to tell when you're not there. Yes.
And I even said, like, I had surgery in January, and I kind of started bringing it up, like, I'm going to have surgery, and, there's something going on, and I just want you to let you know I'm going to be quiet a little bit. But then also, that's the beauty of evergreen content. That you can post stuff that you have done last year, or, like, I'm very good at, if I'm going to record something, I'm going to record extra content. So on the days that I don't feel good, I can still share something that I think is beautiful, that I think people would like. And then I'm not,
Well, evergreen content, for those who aren't quite sure about what the term is it's content that's not dated. Yes. It's something that doesn't have a very specific time frame, or that isn't isn't constricted by time. So let's just say like I was giving you the day that we did this, that would immediately cut this out as evergreen content because I'm giving you the exact day that this happened. I'm telling you when we recorded. I'm not going to tell you when we recorded. I'm just saying that I'm not using this episode as an example, but like, you know, those things, it's that balance. It's that balance of creating evergreen, i.e. it can get posted at any point in time, especially when you're in a lull.
That's also the beauty of having the .com. I have 10 years of evergreen content. I could pull out, like if I like come home tonight and I'm just tired, I can pull out a recipe from the archives and I'd be like, this is a great idea for dinner. Sometimes people are just looking for a 30-minute meal that they don't have to have all these ingredients. They just want to put, you know, dinner on the table and they want to go Netflix, you know, watch Netflix, you know. So I can pull, that's the beauty of having all that. And then
watch Love is Blind, the 18th edition.
Take a mental break. And that's why I always say the weekends are my weekends. If I decide to share, like if I'm with my sisters, or I'm having a glass of wine or something, yes, I'll share that. Or if I'm creating a recipe or tweaking a recipe, but I'm not on there all day. You know, it's my time to decompress. Like last night I had a magazine launch party for the issue, the first issue. And it was amazing. I invited people that I'm very close to. I enjoy their company. But even at the end of the night, I had to take those 30 minutes because it's a lot of energy, you know?
Yes.
And you're just, you know, it's a lot of talking, a lot of energy. And I had to take the time to just decompress and sit alone and just, you know, get my energy back. And then I was just, I'm fine, you know? So it's like a lot. But
so we're talking about a lot and no, we're talking about like how much a lot is that you do. And I didn't mention all of the publications you're on because it's a huge list. You know, Oprah, Food Network, like you have been on some of the biggest platforms for cuisine. I mean, at this point, like I'm just waiting for you to be on that dang thing for New York Times, like, or whatever the hell it's called, like Condé Nast.
I'm very, very proud of Southern Living. I was named Cook of the Year for one of their year.
For 2020.
And I had to share a recipe and I shared a concha tres leches. And
if you haven't seen the concha tres leches that she has on her freaking Instagram, I was like,
I love conchas.
I felt like I was Homer in that moment.
It's my favorite pan dulce, so I find any excuse to make it into a new recipe. So like, and it was just, you know, the concha mixed into the pan and then on top, and they were just like, cause they were like, can we have a recipe that we, you know, represents you? And I was like, okay. So I sent them and they're like, this is gorgeous. We love it. And just to open the pages, you know, cause that's the magazine my mom loves. She's one of her that she loves. Just to open the pages and see a concha tres leches in there with your daughter standing there, like she was like, Mira,
yes, we made it. I could tell all of my relatives that they were wrong.
So amazing. And I had all her friends from when she worked at the school, like sending me pictures. Oh my God, I saw you in the magazine. And it was such like anything that wonderful that happens to me, I always feel like it's happening to my mom at the same time.
Oh, yes.
You know? Because like she had all these dreams and she wanted to do, you know, things, and life got in the way and she was a little fearful of certain things. And so now every time, like, you know, like last night I kept sending her pictures like, look, Mom, we're on the cover of the magazine, because I'm holding her albóndigas. I'm holding barro, you know, I'm in a huipil from Oaxaca. Like, it's just like, Mom, look, you know, and she was like, ay, mija, you know, so like, it's just, I feel like we're both winning, you know, these are both, you know, wonderful things for both of us. So,
and so we're talking, you know, you're like Oaxaca and huipil and these very clear, you know, Mexican things. Yes. And so you did go to Mexico.
Yes.
And I guess my question would be, why would it be important for Mexicanos who are here in the States to go to Mexico? You know, if you're Mexican American,
yes.
Why did that do anything for you? Did that change your perception of the food? Did that change your perception of your culture?
It did. Like, I'm very, I like I said, I identify myself as Tejana. This is my territory. This is where my food focus is on this. But when I go to Oaxaca, the food is different. The preparation, food I've never tried before. And it's also like, it makes you feel, I felt at home there. I felt love there. I felt like the colors, the vibrancy, like it was so much, it was overwhelming to me, because I felt like it was strange, because I felt like I was at home, and I felt like like I had lived there before, and it was probably my ancestors or some part of my family that's traveled through there. But just anything, the aguas, the the food, anything that we tried, and of course everything. When I go to Mexico, it's always centered around food. So we go and we try different foods and restaurants and stuff, and the mercados, and the fruit is just taste so different there. Like the papaya in the morning, the melon, everything just tastes so different. It tastes fresh and vibrant, and it inspires me. I go to Mexico to be inspired, not just for their cuisine, because I have my own cuisine, like that's what I focus on, but it's just, I don't, it's my roots, it's my heritage. So I get there, there a week, and I come back and I'm so inspired, and it's just, I try to go at least once a year, and it's always a me trip. Like this is my alone time because I don't take my family. It's just me and other people that are in food. So it's just like us, like from morning till evening, like we're just eating. We plan, we meticulously plan where we're going to stop. What are we going to do? Mercados. And then we go shopping, for textiles and shirts. And it's fun. It's fun.
And,
it's also a break.
Like speaking of that, just because a lot of the times, I mean, and it's not without merit, is like Mexico is dangerous and not dangerous. It's just like here in the States. Yes. There's areas that are dangerous and not dangerous. And it just depends on who you're with, where you're going, and if you know what the hell you're doing.
Yes.
And so, given all of that, would you recommend that people, if they feel moved to go?
I feel like if you feel moved to go, like I felt like I needed to go, you should go. But you also plan. You go with a group of people, you plan ahead. We had really good, the first time I went with travel Art Alexia from San Diego. So it was like, she met us at the airport. She had drivers. She had, we were in a bed and breakfast. The second time I went with some girls that I know from Chasing Camila. I don't know if you've met her. She's here from RGV. She runs a group called Viajeras Blogueras. So she curates these trips. So she's got drivers. We stay in an Airbnb. She's guiding you through the mercados. I like to travel like that because I want to travel and be with somebody, an expert from the area, because they know the history. They know where to go. They know where, like, I feel safer. And plus, I get a wealth of knowledge. Like, I want to get there and I want to learn something. I want to learn how to cook. I want to learn from an expert. So I say if you're moved to go, you go. But plan accordingly and just enjoy it because, life is short.
Yeah. And it's just, there's so much about Mexico that like people just assume a lot about the area and the region and how it is. And it's just the more and more I learn in my older age. And I say this like, it's such a weird phrase to say, but it's like, I'm not 25 anymore.
Yes.
Like up until 25, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Yes. I didn't really know who I wanted to be, what I wanted to be. Yeah. I was, dating bolillos with the idea that was like, it was a weird sense of assimilation that did not work. And I didn't stay in those situations. Yes. Nothing against, a good bread, but the bolillos, on the other hand, no, thank you. But it's just, like, you understand quite clearly the culture shift and how much gets stripped away. And so as I was kind of just really understanding who I was and really engaging with it in that way, I realized there was a wealth of knowledge and information that I didn't know and wanted to know. Yes. And that desire to learn and to grow and to really just take that in was more important to me than assimilating.
Yes.
Or any type of assimilation, whatever I was thinking I needed to be.
Yes.
And with that being said, was there any point, within the time that you were at school or, in San Antonio, that you felt this sense of assimilation that was almost like present but not spoken?
I feel like earlier when we spoke about my mom going to the classroom, I feel like when I was younger, it was like we were assimilating. Like we were just like, go to school. Don't, like my dad would say, go to school, speak English there, but when you come home, you need to speak Spanish. So we knew we were English and we were Spanish. So we were two, like it was like Vianney and there's Vianney, you know? So it was
Vianney and Vianney.
Yes. So it was this, you know, growing up, it was like that. There was not a lot of Latino families there. It was a very small town. I think it graduated with like, you know, the graduating class was like 60, 70. So it was just, you would go to school and you would be like, hey girl, you know, like what's up or whatever. You'd come home and you'd be like,
Tubular.
yeah, you'd come home and it was a different world. So I always say I grew up in both worlds. And I think that's what kind of shaped me. But when I got a little older, I moved to San Antonio. No, I loved San Antonio. San Antonio was very open, very, like, everyone I met there was kind and considerate and was like, oh, let me show you around. And, oh, you try this place. Try this place. Don't go over there. Be careful. There was a lot of mija. No vayas para allá. You know, like when I was working, I worked at a little store on San Pedro called Handy Handy. And there was older people that worked there, and they're, mija, no te metes ahí, you know, don't go straight home, you know. So it was just very safe for me. It's always been a special place for me.
And then you came back to the Valley, and so like living in, you know, what a lot of people would consider South Texas, truly, like San Antonio is considered South Texas, even though I disagree.
Okay, but what is your South Texas? Where do you think it?
Laredo to Corpus down.
Okay, that's
like
what I
line,
think too.
That line down.
Yes,
that is for me South Texas. Yes. Anything up from that, and the reason why, at least to me, is the vegetation. Yes, the way it looks. Yes, like all of that is just once you hit. I'm trying to remember what the name of it's like Kingsville, like the farm. Like, yes. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's like a ranch.
Yes, the King Ranch.
King Ranch. Like anything kind of there, and then King Ranch. That to me is clearly South Texas. Yes. Above that, it's hills and cedar and lakes. Just and lakes, and it's just. The area just doesn't scream South Texas to me because it's just regionally so different.
I always get people, it's always a constant, like San Antonio down, Laredo, Corpus down. It's always this, everyone's got a different view on it. You know?
Yeah, no, like, but it's interesting, and I wanted to ask you, it's like from those three areas, you know, McAllen, Edinburgh, so we're going to say the Valley, because I'm sure you didn't just stick to McAllen, Edinburgh.
Yeah, my grandparents lived in Brandsville too.
Okay. Yeah. And so like that's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of like that you obviously didn't just stay in McAllen. Like there was other areas. It's the Valley. But you know, you have that, you have Corpus, and you have San Antonio. Yes. What do you feel like was something that came from each of them in regards to like one thing culturally that just really stood out to you from each area?
Oh my gosh. Corpus, Aransas is the seafood.
Okay.
That's to me, that's the Gulf.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's the Gulf. We were in Aransas also. My mom used to work on the shrimp docks. So to me, it's coastal. It's the seafood, oysters. San Antonio is very puffy tacos. The people, the music, vibrancy. Yeah. It's very come hang with us. Join us. It's very
carne asada culture.
Yes, and I love San Antonio. I love Corpus. The Valley is very humilde, familias, large families, casera, comida casera. The food here is delicious. This is a lot of my food memories are here from the Valley. Like it's even the panaderias are different here.
Oh, okay.
Like there's one in Laredo called Quickie Stop.
Okay, I've never heard of that one.
Quickies. It's called Quickies, and it's so good. Like their vanilla concha is so good, but I think each has their own vibrancy to it, and I love them all. Like I love San Antonio all the way down. Like those are my favorite. those are my favorite spots.
Once you get to Austin, it's a whole different animal.
My daughter lives in Austin. So
and how does she feel about the food over there?
She is in a restaurant and she's doing fine dining. So she's trying to zone her craft in fine dining. Okay. So she works at a Japanese restaurant. Okay. And it's so different than what she grew up cooking and but anytime she's asked, which I love her for this, anytime she's asked to put a special on the menu, a spec they call it, that will go on the menu, anytime she puts anything on there, she throws in a little
flair.
A little chilancho, a little something, or she'll be like, this is a nod to my mom, and it'll be like, or a nod to my dad, it'll be like brisket con tamarindo. Like it always has a little bit of her roots, and I love that because she's like, I'm learning fine dining, but I can't forget where I came from.
Yes. So now speaking of spices and chiles.
Oh my gosh, I love chiles.
What is your favorite chile?
Ancho.
What is the no-go chile?
I love all chiles. I will not say no to any. Habanero is I don't utilize it enough.
Okay.
But ancho, guajillo, cascabel, piquín, serrano, jalapeño, I love them.
You do realize I'm gonna have to edit like little pictures of each of them in your thing.
But I want to say the chile ancho, the dry chile ancho is king in our house because my mom used it so much. It's big in our tamales. It's one of the flavors that I just like. Cuando pones un chile ancho seco on the comal and it starts to puff up a little bit, oh, that smell, it's magical.
Oh my God.
It's magical.
It's like, for me, I, but in regards to that, but you've seen multiple chilies.
Yes.
But which is a chili that you say, I will absolutely not? Like it might not be a Mexican chili, but it's just like a chili that you've heard of, you know what the Scoville scale is, and you go, absolutely not. My butt will hate me.
I know it's so, like, I can't friend with the Chipotle. I don't know what it is.
Really?
Chipotle is like, everybody loves it, and I've used it in numerous recipes, but it's not like, oh, I'm craving chiles. Let's go grab a Chipotle.
I am so wild because for me, on the other hand, I have a bottle, and maybe it's because of like the company, because I got it at the Lopez supermarket.
Okay.
So it's like,
I love Lopez supermarket.
Okay, so they're in their aisle, in the chile aisle, the sauces aisle. There is like 3 bottles. They have a little white top.
Okay.
They're very unassuming.
Okay.
And there is a chipotle habanero sauce.
Okay.
Oh, that is my breakfast taco go-to. That is my like breakfast go-to.
Yes.
Like I must have it on my breakfast.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to give her more time.
She will flower.
She will grow on me. But it's just Chipotle's. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's
Absolutely not.
It's not my go-to.
It's not your go-to. So for me, it's definitely like my go-to. A beautifully pickled jalapeno.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
the carrots.
give it to me on cheese.
Yes,
give it to me on a taco.
Oh my
give
gosh.
Give it to me on like Churchy's chicken, fried food.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever had barreras from Robstown, Texas?
No, I have not.
The next time you come,
yes.
Barreras from Robstown, Texas is so delicious. Oh, I could take you anywhere. I take you to all these places.
Yes, I'm like, my no-go though. My no-go is any freaking thing that's on the hot ones. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's cute looking. Anything on hot ones will not enter my enter my esophagus.
No,
it will not enter my booty hole. Actually, it won't exit my booty hole.
Yes,
like,
I'm not doing that to myself.
No. Like, and here's the thing is like, would you ever, like you've seen a bunch of food programs.
Yes.
If you had a dream food program that you could make your own.
Okay.
Like if you were gonna do like a like not a reboot, but like this is the Vianney version of Hot Ones. Would you do that?
No.
Okay.
No. I want to be Tejana Kitchen on PBS.
Okay. Would you have a Muppet?
No.
No. But like, if you could have any show that already exists.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So this is shows that exist, but it was Vianney style with your cooking on it.
Okay. I'm gonna have to
like Test Kitchen, like stuff like that.
Oh, I love Test Kitchen, but I love Pati Henich on PBS.
Okay.
I love her. I also love Ina Garten.
Okay.
Like I feel like she's just casual chic. Like, you know, she just walks in and just makes a martini and then she goes off into the, like she lives in the Hamptons. So she's just,
but she'd be like,
saunters in, you know,
flowy.
But I would like to saunter in and make like a margarita, some guacamole, you know, and then
oh my God, yes.
But I think I do have a YouTube cooking show on Identity. It's called the Tex-Mex Queen, and it's very fun. We shot the first season at the height of the pandemic.
Perfect time to do it.
Yes, and it was just no glam. We were just in the kitchen. Like it was just like 3 people in there, and we shot it, and it was. I didn't, like, I was so tired after we shot, because we shot it in 3 days, and I was exhausted.
A full season in 3 days.
In 3 days. I was exhausted mentally, physically.
Get away from me. Yes. I don't want to look at you. I don't even want to, don't breathe on me.
Who is bringing me my tortillas? I was done, you know? It was so much cooking.
Yes.
And then when it rolled out each episode, people loved it. It had great views. People were emailing me, DMing me on social media, like, oh my God, I love this recipe. My grandfather made this recipe. Oh, the way you spoke about your dad, because my dad makes the best migas. And the only reason he makes the best migas is when he was in charge of us kids, that's the only dish he could cook. So he has perfected those. So it's like I talk a lot about my parents on that show, and we're about to start on season 2.
But not in 3 days.
Not in 3 days, no.
That was
like, I cannot do that again.
You're like, no.
And Mando produces it, and I'm like, Mando, please. I cannot do that in 3 days. And he was like, no, Vianney, we're gonna.
We will not put you through the boot.
We will be gentle with you. But we're gonna shoot it at my space. So I'm super excited, because the first time we shot it in a remote, like, little house out on a ranch, and it was gorgeous. But it's gonna be so much different in my space. And,
Yes, and so you have your own studio space, and so is that? I mean, not to give too much of like your personal life, but is it connected to your home, or is it a little far away?
It's connected to my home, but I physically have to walk out of the front door, walk out, and go through another door. I didn't want a doorway through, because another thing, I've been doing this for so long, I was tired of living where I worked.
Yes.
So it was like props everywhere, recipes, books, like in my kitchen. Then I'd have to move everything to the side, cook dinner, do homework. And it was just, it became overwhelming.
It's too much. Like, I can already,
I want to be able to, now I can, thank goodness, I can walk to my space, make my mess, do everything, shoot everything. Then I can clock out, walk home, make dinner, sit on the couch with Roy, and we have, and I found it's changed everybody. Like, the dogs are happier. There's not props everywhere. Roy's happy to have the dining room, because when my photographer would come shoot, we'd have to move the dining room, move the couch to have an open space to shoot.
Okay.
So it's that balance I needed, and it took us a while to figure out how we were going to do it. And then Roy's like, you know what? We got to make this happen. Brought in contractors. And it just rolled into what are we putting, what colors, and it just became this beautiful, magical space. I love it. I just walking into my kitchen every day, it just fuels me.
As some of you know, early in 2020, I was in a real bad accident, and the consequences you have to live with afterwards can be a lot. You can lose your car, you can lose work, and therefore money, and can be super injured and have a huge pile of hospital bills to pay. Seriously, no bueno. So if, like me, you've been the victim of an accident, you need a professional to get the care you need. In case of an accident, you need a lawyer to protect your rights and your wallet, and you don't have to look any further than that simple phrase by going to incaseofanaccident.com for a free consultation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if the person who suffered the accident wasn't you, but maybe it was your tia, your abuelita, your second cousin twice removed. I mean, I'm not here judging, but hey, whoever it is, don't worry, send them on over. Everyone at In Case of an Accident speaks Spanish and can even take messages through WhatsApp at the number 888-990-0911. Don't forget to tell them that Veronique Medrano from Accordion to Me sent you. You know that little emoji with the wallet with the wings on it just flying away? Well, that's me. I'm the advertiser, and I need you guys to go and listen to my music, get merch, just support however you can, even just the word of mouth. All of it helps. All you have to do is go onto your favorite streaming platform and look me up, Veronique Medrano. The new songs out now are Mezcal Maria, featuring my best girly girl, Beatriz Gonzalez, and Running on Empty. my Tejano country tune that's been featured on Billboard, The Boot, and many, many more publications. So proud of that. Coming up soon will be Que Hueva. That is our completely Spanish country tune. So make sure to go on to veroniquemedrano.com to pre-save that song or listen to any of the other songs that I have on my catalog. Almost 10 years worth of music. Come on, there's enough for you to enjoy. Also, if you want to support the pod and get some merch, you can just go on to veroniquemedrano.com/store and check out the hoodies, cups, and so much more. We'll keep dropping new things every month to celebrate the 10 years of me being in music and the arts. So, you know, like it's about balance.
Yes.
And you know, how do you find it in such a big social media space? Because are you on every platform? Are you on every social media? Or are there some that you're like, no, that's not a space for me? Did you kind of edit how much social media you were using? Like, how did you find the balance without overextending yourself?
At the beginning, there was no balance. I'm going to be very truthful. There was no balance. It was all about the site. Of course, I would have the time with the kids, but I was working 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, sleeping a few hours. There was no balance. As soon as I got the team and I started, moving different and not taking on so much, I had to learn how to say no, because I had to learn how to say, no, this is a great opportunity, but my daughter also has driving lessons or my daughter also we need to move her to college, or my daughter or my husband needs a vacation with me. It became to where I have to say no to certain things. And I found that as soon as I learned to say no, I was really saying yes to myself. So it was like no, but yes to Vianney. And then at the end, it would become where that wasn't where I needed to fuel my time. This is where I needed to fuel my time. And it became this, it grew. It didn't all happen overnight. It's taking me years to even now, there's weeks where I'm hectic. And then there's weeks where I have nothing, and I relish in that. Like, I love that. And I shoot a lot of content when I'm not that busy. And then there's weeks where I'm just like, how are we going to make it through the week? It's a constant balance that you're trying to work. But I also find that I'm the happiest when I'm creating. So to me, like, if I just create something and it makes me happy, it doesn't seem like work. But then at least now with my space, I could be like, I've created it, I'm happy, now let's go home and let's rest. I've also learned that sleep is very important. Working out for me helps me, because my mind sometimes doesn't turn off. Who
knew that sleeping and water would really just cure hydration, and exercise would cure burnout?
Yes, and eating well and spending time with the dogs.
And Totino's pizza.
But it's always a struggle.
I'm gonna have a Totino's pizza counter right on the side of this episode.
It's always a struggle. I find, that it's always gonna be something that I'm gonna have to be challenged with, and I'm going to have to learn and adapt. And luckily I have a great family, but I also know when I'm pushing them thin, and then I'm like, we need to scale back.
Yeah.
And then there's also times where I'm just like, no, like during December, I take an entire month off in December. I shoot everything early. Okay. My photographer already knows, and we start shooting like in September, October, stuff that I will roll out in December.
So you do December. So you don't do the whole, Hispanic Heritage Month.
I do everything.
Okay, so you do that.
I do Hispanic Heritage Month, Day of the Dead. I do a lot in Christmas.
Speaking of Day of the Dead.
Yes.
The most intriguing, recipe that I have seen, and I will be trying this year, is the marigold tamales.
That's just...
It's
so good, and it's so different, but it's just...
So different. Like, I'm sorry, but Delia's ain't coming out here with some marigold tamales.
It's just so... I am, enamored with the marigold. A lot of recipes, like the blackberry, I have a lot of recipes for marigolds.
Really?
I'm enamored they smell like... My grandmother loved them. They're a big part of Day of the Dead. My grandmother would do a little altar in our house, and it's just something that I love. And then when I started experimenting with them cooking, I've made cocktails out of them. I've infused tequila with them. I've made pasteles with them. tamales. It's just something that's very close to my heart. And
so what's unique about the flavor of them when you've experimented?
It's got this earthy, it's an earthy floral flavor that will go perfectly with sweet or sour, so you can take it either way.
Okay.
But it's just such a beautiful flower. Like, it's just gorgeous.
Like that recipe, I don't want to get it wrong, but I know it came out in a publication.
Food Network, yes.
And that to me, I was like, what? Like
Yes.
it was tamale, but it was like, and this is where I go back to, you know, what I said in the intro. It's just your Tex-Mex Mexican food, because I'm gonna put them both together.
Yes.
Is just so unique.
Yes.
Like anybody can try to make XYZ, and yes, they will make it their own way. They will interpret it their own way and share it with the world,
Yes.
and people will gravitate to them or not.
Yes.
But that to me was like, along with the tres leches, like the concha tres leches, and so many other things that you have made are just so clearly South Texas that there's just no way like anyone could confuse you for Adan or Adan for Jose,
And you know
or
what?
anything like
That is
that.
the greatest compliment. That's at the end of the day, like, I am Tejana, I'm South Texas, born and raised. This is my food, and that's exactly what I want to share. Like, and the whole piece made it even more special because I put a picture of my grandmother. My grandmother
I
is the
saw that.
tamale queen. Like, she started our tamaladas. She passed it on to my mother, to the tamalada. Now I'm in charge of the tamalada, and it's something so precious to me. So I'm the one who shall pass down these tamale recipes.
Mm-hmm.
So to learn from her, my mom, me, now my daughter knows it, my younger daughter knows it, my husband knows, my dad, like, everyone gets together and make tamales. So that was such a special piece to incorporate the flour and my grandmother and those memories. Like, that was a very special piece to me.
Yeah, and it was just like, I can't wait to make them this year. I really can't. Like, I'm like trying to figure out how much everything costs so that I can go and grab it and try it and mess up.
And there's also a recipe for blackberry coconut tamales on there, and those are so delicious. Like, everybody does the sweet tamales, but
Yeah.
of course I'm gonna bring in my blackberry. But it was blackberry and coconut and lime, and they're just so good. They're just the perfect tamale, like after, like a dessert tamale.
There
and the
isn't-
breakfast tamale.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
good.
Do you have a breakfast tamale?
No, but I mean, I feel like blackberries. Like, it's breakfasty.
Weenie con huevo tamale.
There's fruit in there.
No, for me, I'd be like, weenes con huevo tamale.
Hey, that could happen.
I mean, it could, but it's just, you know, when talking about like a lot of the times Mexican food is like, I feel like it gets it's savory. And we don't get this really huge highlight on the sweet. Yes, you know, there's pan dulce. But even pan dulce doesn't get the love it should. And I am sorry to the Taste Kitchen, Condé Nast. Absolutely do not do whatever you did. That was nasty. But Condé Nasty, that was nasty. But like, you know, a lot of, you know, white leaning, you know, Anglo leaning publications come in and try to do their own spin on our stuff. And you look at it and you're like, absolutely not. Like peas in guacamole, like things like that. It's like, you know, how do you feel about stuff like that when you see it?
It makes me sad because it's not, there is so many talented cocineros throughout Texas and Mexico.
New York, the world, California.
The world, we're everywhere. We are sharing our food and we're sharing our culture. If you need an expert for an article, why don't you reach out to them? Let them share something. Why do you have to share it
and butcher it?
Yes, give them a chance, your platform, to share a recipe, and I guarantee you people would respond to it because it would be, oh my gosh, someone from Laredo is sharing a pan dulce. I would read that in a click. I would make that in a click. I would share it in a click. You know?
Well, it becomes like
it's not your story to tell.
That too, but it's authenticity.
Yes.
So, like, if you see, and this is where I know it's a touchy subject because it's like, okay, well, if someone has a Mexican or Latin last name, you assume there's authenticity, you know, but then they could have just married in, and you don't know that, and so. Like, how do you protect yourself from those questions and those accusations of authenticity?
I've been asked a few times, oh, pues eres gringa. You know, te casaste con un Rodriguez. And I'm like, no, I'm actually browner than my husband. I'm actually, we're both brown. We're both Mexicanos. I'm just a little pale. And it's not that I was born this way. I have an iron deficiency. I've struggled with an iron deficiency. I have anemia. I'm pale, So it's like I get those questions and I get those comments. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I know who I am. I know the story I'm sharing. The story I'm sharing is true. It's my heritage, my recipes. So it's just, you have to push that aside, because if you sat down and listened to every negative comment, and people on social media,
it's never ending. It's never ending. Do not read the comments.
I would be in a puddle on the floor. Like, I cannot block. Thank you, have a great day, whatever. I cannot sit there and read that, because some of the, like, if I post something, some of the comments are just like, well, what? That's not real Mexican food. My grandmother did. Well, your grandmother made it a certain way. My grandmother made it a different way. Doesn't mean that it's not authentic. It's what her recipe,
Yeah, and that's always kind of just the fight. It's the fight for the recipe, and it's like, look, recipes are made to be edited and as needed for you. Yes. So like if I add a jalapeno and you are like, my stomach will straight up hurt me for a simple jalapeno, don't add it. But it's that sense of like, I am not going to shrink myself to whatever you think a Mexican or Latino is.
And I have a passion to share this, and I have a want to share this, and I want you to learn, and I want you to know more about me. I want you to know more about South Texas. I want you to get in the kitchen and cook. So tell me what you're going to tell me. I'm going to slide it to the side, and I'm going to keep on moving, because I have a mission, and my mission is for everyone to cook, and everyone to get in there.
And so, like, for the future, you're going on to season 2.
Yes.
Mando, be nice. Do not have her do it in 3 days, says me. But you're doing season 2. But what is your future goal? Maybe something on your bucket list that you said, you know what, I've done all of this, but where would you want to take your cooking next?
I have a dream cookbook in my mind.
Okay.
And it's been there for a while. I have 2 cookbooks, and they're my babies. I have my Latin twist, which is cocktails, which was so much fun to create. It was my first venture into cookbooks, and I learned a lot. My second one is the Tex-Mex slow cooker, which is all recipes made in the slow cooker. And that was just that book. We began and created it in a very specific time. It was during Harvey. So as soon as me and my daughter planned out the recipes, cooked them together, tested them together, we submitted the finished cookbook. It went off to the publisher. We were waiting for edits. Harvey came in and destroyed our house. So it's a very special cookbook to me. That was the last book, something I created in my kitchen when we lived in Aransas. So that's always going to be a special book. But I've always just had a dream cookbook in the back of my mind, and I'm starting to pull things together, and I want it to be specific to who I am. And I want to work on that. So I want to devote some time to that, and I really want it to be a reflection of who I am. So
when it comes to creating cookbooks, what is one of the things that is a thing that people don't know about the creation of a cookbook?
Creating a cookbook is a lot of work, and it takes almost a year and a half to create the book, because you have to do the recipes, you have to do the byline, the intro, the head notes, you have to edit, you have to several revisions of edits, then there's the whole photography. Then once you turn in the cookbook, your work's not finished, because then you need to promote this cookbook, book tour, social media campaign. Like, you have to get people to pre-order. Pre-orders for cookbooks are essential. Like, it is key for pre-orders to do well. So you're just constantly, I've got a new book coming out, and you have to find a way to where people are like, ya sé, like, you have to creatively find a way to, just wanted to let y'all know it's Monday and like something to where it doesn't feel like it's an ad all the time. Then you do the book tour, and then you have speaking engagements, and then you want press for the interview. So it's a lot of work. And you don't go into cookbooks thinking you're going to become a billionaire, because you're not. It's something that you want to share, and it's your baby, and you're going to put it out to the world. So it's a lot of work.
Like, the most interesting thing that for me about cookbooks is the testing of the recipes.
Yes.
Like, I thought in my just very uneducated brain in regards to cooking was, okay, I have this recipe, I have all this stuff, I make it, do the photos, boom, done. And like, tell me about that process. Tell me about the process of testing a recipe.
We tested the recipes 3 times before they even make it into the book.
And what is like the guidelines on the testing?
So you of course you create your, like, the list of the recipes. Like, say there's 195, you write them all down, you start creating, you develop the recipes. A lot of them are your home recipes that you've had, so you have to make them, you know, like, you can't just be like, ponle sal, like the way your grandparents do.
Yes, like just eye it.
You just, you know, like, and then the way sometimes at home, I'm just cooking and I'm just tossing stuff in there, whatever I have in the fridge that I need to use. You need to, you know, a cup, a teaspoon, you have to do, you know, then you have to edit that to where it's, you know, it follows a format. Then you go into the testing phase and you test it the first time. Maybe you need a tweak. You go back and you tweak it. Then you test it a second time, and then you're like, oh, ya mero, you know. Then you test it a third time. And if you get it perfect on the second time, you still need to test it the third time.
To make sure it's not a fluke.
Yes, because this is going out into the world. People are going to pick up this book. They're going to have it in their kitchen. They're going to open it. They're going to want to start the recipe from start to finish, and they want it to taste good.
Exactly. They want it to taste and look exactly like they see in the
Yes,
picture.
yes.
Because they eat with their eyes.
Yes, and I'm very conscientious of when I put the food on when we photo it, there's nothing that's not in the recipe on the photo. Because people are like, well, what's that flour doing there? What's that chili doing there? There's nothing in there. No, it's only what's in the recipe. So
Okay. Well, it was, and I bring this up because I recently, you know, did a review, and I have been starting to do reviews of cookbooks.
Yes.
And what was interesting to me is you're pointing out like measurements.
Yes.
And I reviewed a book that had, to taste. Put as much as you want.
Yes.
And that was part of the recipe. And I was like, that is danger zone. I mean, mind you, that to me was danger zone, but it tasted great, mind you, because it was to my taste.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I can deal. On other ones, I'm like, why didn't you put, like me, I'm going, why didn't you put specifics? And that was just me making that comment. And so, like, do you feel that there are certain maybe personalities or people that can get away with something like that by publishers because they're like, oh, well, it's really more about that, and the recipes are kind of just additions? Or compared to you, where you would have to be, you would be put to a stricter litmus on like just a stricter just review of, oh, well, why didn't she put this and that? It didn't rise, or it didn't do X, Y,
There's
Z.
chefs that have an entire team that all their team is doing is creating their cookbooks. Writers, test kitchens, photographers. I mean, they've got an entire team. When I put out a cookbook, it's me and my daughter, or, you know, I bring in my friend, or, you know, my photographer comes in, and it's, it's more work because it's a one single, you know, it's a small team. It's me, but it's also, if I'm going to put a cookbook out, I want to make sure that I'm in it from the start to the finish, because at the end of the day, you know, another chef puts his name on it. He's got, you know, 12, 13 books, you know, you know, it's just another book. This is something I birthed from the beginning. This is the vision I had. This is what I want. This is what I want to share. This is my voice, because it also has stories of my family. So I want to be hands-on from the beginning to the end. So it is a lot more work for smaller creatives, but at the end, it's all worth it. When I see people sharing, or they're like sharing the cookbook, or they made a recipe, I mean, it just warms my heart. It's just like the greatest compliment, you know?
So what is like a big red flag for you in a recipe that you see online? Like for me, I recently saw one that was a casserole of migas that had whole milk in it.
Oh, is it like a casserole? Like you would put it like brunchy kind of thing?
I don't know, but it looked dangerous.
I don't.
That was for me.
Yeah.
Like I saw a casserole, my big red flag on it. The reason I didn't even make it was a cup of whole milk, and it was a migas casserole.
Oh, that's.
And I was like, no go for me.
Yeah.
Like it's not, I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it. But for you, is there something that has popped out to you that you're like, oh, absolutely not? Like if you see it on a recipe for a Mexican dish in particular, you're like, oh, absolutely
A
not.
Mexican dish, not really. Like I try to only follow people I feel like are legit. So then I'm like, oh, that's great or whatever. But if I go and I see someone taking someone else's culture and making a recipe and putting it's an Asian cuisine and they put mozzarella in it, I'm like, that to me does not make sense.
Okay.
Why?
So peas and guacamole.
Yes, something like that. Or when I see, like, I get a lot of people send me those Rachel Ray videos, and I love
because they want you to react. That's why.
Yes,
really, it's like
I don't react to that. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh my gosh, because it's like she's doing pozole and she's putting pinto beans and like different stuff in it. And
I wonder sometimes. I mean, she's so
nuanced. Do you think she would, like
she's not only is she so nuanced, but you have to think like her career started
30-minute meals,
like 30-minute meals, and it just like I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. It's but why would you? But even then, like the 30-minute meals was her calling card.
Yeah.
But then you look at like other stuff that she's done that's more nuanced that isn't clickbait. So sometimes I wonder
if she's doing that just to get
like
the
on
reaction.
purpose.
Yeah, because I feel like it's only Mexican food she's doing that to, and it's outrageous the stuff she does. Like people send it, and at first I was like, "Oh, that's so funny" or whatever, and then I was like, "Guys, like
I don't like this.
Yes,
stop
I don't
sending
like
it to me."
And I don't want to share that because I don't want to be like negative. Like I don't want to be sharing that, and I don't want to give it more eyes than it needs. That needs to just stay where it's at.
Exactly. Like I think the one person that I do watch that critiques, Chinese or Asian food is Uncle Roger. But when he does that, it's
funny.
it's so funny that Gordon Ramsay, who he's made fun of multiple times, finally got his shit. Like they took the critique and then they did it better.
Yes.
And then Gordon Ramsay invited him to his show to make fun of, this was full circle, to make fun of chefs that he made do a challenge. And he's like critiquing them and making fun of them, lightheartedly, but going, what are you doing? Like,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, like, no. But like Gordon Ramsay's sitting there happy as punch that he is not the punchline today, watching these chefs.
Smart move on his end.
Yeah, like watching these chefs get critiqued by somebody that big.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, it would be really great if the Jamie Olivers, the Rachel Rays, like the people that come out with, Mexican food would just, or Latin food, because they also do Latin food, would take a step back and take the critique and stop making that stuff, or just kind of course correct.
Focus on the cuisine that got you there. Like Rachel Ray's always been Italian. Jamie Oliver's, he's British,
Is he? No, he's Australian, isn't he?
Jamie Oliver, I thought he lived in England. Isn't he?
Well, I'm sorry, Jamie.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so Rachel Ray.
Rachel Ray. But Rachel Ray, like
strong
Mario Batali.
Yes.
Oh my God. Bam. I can't remember his name, but bam.
Oh, yes. Mario. Oh, Emerald.
The other one, Bobby Flay.
Yes.
Bobby Flay has also been in there for that.
Rick Bayless.
And it's just like, sometimes it is good to like challenge yourself.
Yes.
Because there's a thing too, is I think when chefs do the same thing over and over and over again, there's no challenge for them.
Yes. So they want to explore. Yes.
And do you feel unchallenged, or do you feel that Mexican cuisine is so complex and Tex-Mex cuisine with it, that you'll never run out of ideas because of your unique take on them?
No, and I find I'll never run out of ideas, because like say I want to make a pozole verde and I show you from start to scratch, from beginning to end. We make the tomatillo sauce, salsa. We make the chicken. Okay. It's a great recipe. Now, you know what? Today we're going to make it, and we're going to make it in the slow cooker, and I'm going to show you how to throw everything in there. You go to work, you come home, and you got pozole. The next time, you know what? I found this great salsa. Pick up your favorite salsa verde
At the store.
Y así te lo, like long version, slow cooker version. I need to get dinner on the table quick. There's always, but it's still the same recipe.
Wow.
But I'm just walking you through a different version, because some days on a Sunday I want to make the long version.
Yeah.
On a Thursday, after it's been a hectic week, where is the salsa that I like? And I'm going to put it in there, and we're just going to get dinner on the table. I'm going to walk you through all those. So there's never going to be, to me, it's like I've got notebooks where I'm just scribbling down, like, I need to try this, I always have a notebook, or if I go out to eat and I'm like, wow, this would be great. This would be great to show people how to make this at home, you know?
And then that's what I always find amazing about Mexican restaurants is that like every restaurant, and it's, of course, like I live in the Valley, so like the RGV. And so there's like, if there's a bank, there's a Mexican restaurant. And so there's always a place to get some type of inspiration from. And there's always some new way to do something.
Or you know what? I love guanchas. I buy 6 guanchas. I'm not going to eat all 6 guanchas. Maybe they go a little stale. Let's toss them in Rice Krispies. Let's make guancha Rice Krispies. Let's make guancha no-bake cookie balls. And people love it. And it stems from my love of guanchas.
Guancha,
you know what?
Guancha cake bites.
Guancha cake bites. Let's do guancha chocolate bark. You melt the chocolate, you put the pieces of guancha on there, and you cut it up. And you know what? Let's take our beloved guancha, let's make it into guancha parfait. Let's make it guancha no churn ice cream. We're celebrating guanchas.
Wow. I'll never it's just wonderful, but it just rolls from your brain. And so how do you stop?
It's hard. I have so many notebooks. Yeah.
Because for me, like, you know what, and it's so inspiring because at this point now I'm just going to pull a you. And because I have all these ideas and I just kind of, it's almost like the creative, you know, the creative muse comes, touches me, and then I go, bleh, and then it just floats away though. Yeah. And I read this book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And that book, if you guys are creative people, that get hit by the muse of creativity and you have all these ideas, but they just float off into the wind. And then you see someone else do them. And there's this sense of like the green-eyed monster that comes out. It's literally it was wonderful the way she put it. She says, the creative muse is always trying to find the person that will bring it to life and birth that piece of artwork, that creativity. And that really kind of like stuck with me. I was like, wow, like that's so true, because there's been ideas I've had for books and movies and novels and different stuff, and yet it's found a home and it's come into existence. So like, is that your way of like putting it down and being able to come back to it? Yes. And I've always been like, maybe I don't know how to do it all the way, but I'm gonna throw it out there. And it's worked for me. Like, maybe I'm not the expert in, like when I started, maybe I'm not the expert in margaritas, but this is how I like my margarita. And I shared it, and then I shared again. And the whole time I'm learning more and more and more. And then sooner or later you become the expert in that. You become comfortable with it or whatever. Or if I have an idea and I think it's delicious and I think people would, que me cuesta? I'm going to put it out there, you know? I can only stop myself. And so how do you keep the inner saboteur out of the kitchen and out of your creative space? I go into the kitchen every morning and I think to myself, what can I teach people? How can I share what I want to share? And how can I stay in because it's South Texas. I don't need to be sharing lasagna. Nobody came for me for lasagna. They're not following me for lasagna. So if I want to make lasagna, I'll make it at the house, you know? But I try to find something that I would be able to share, be able to teach, and make it adaptable. Like earlier, like I told you, the 3 versions, and that just keeps my creative juices flowing. I also surround myself with creatives. And I also like to surround myself with strong-minded creatives who are doing some similar to what I'm doing, but not similar. Like they run their own stores, they're artists or whatever. Because bonita. Because when we get together, the conversations, you know, we're all kind of going through the same thing, and we're all like, we talk about our struggles, we talk about our goals, we talk about in a very safe space, and we're all like, you can do it, or what's stopping you, or it's the accountability. Because they're like, you know, like I want to do this and I want to do this. And somebody that from San Antonio told me, this is the 3rd time you've said that. The next time I talk to you, you better not be talking about that you've
worked on it, started to work on it. So those are the people that you need at your side too, because it keeps you in check and it also keeps you accountable. And so I was thinking, oh man, that's the third time I said that. I need to start. And when I started, you know, working into it, looking into it or whatever. So the next time I spoke to her, she's like, so what? And I've done this, I've done this. She's like, okay, well, I'll check in with you, you know, in a couple of so it's, you know, it's a lot of things.
Yeah. And it's, I love that you bring that up, because accountability, sometimes it really does depend who it comes from. You have to find the right people that fit how you want to be spoken to, how you want to engage in that, because a lot of the time some of it can come off very antagonistic, but the fact that you found a space and a community of people that really engage with you in that way. And so speaking of comunidad, you know, who are people that you would like to shout out that are part of your comunidad, that you feel other people need to search them out, that need to really engage with them so that they can, you know, like be a part of their world, because you're entering their homes, their cars, wherever they are, you know, talking about this, and so who in your comunidad would you like to share with the world?
We shouted out Stephanie Puropinche. We have to, you know, San Antonio. Yes, very that from San Antonio is also very. I love her. I love everything. She's positive. She's radiant. She exudes love and compassion.
There's a brightness about her, man.
There's a brightness about her. Elena is like, girl, do it. What are you waiting for? Eres chingona. Eres magic. Get in there and do it. She's very like, let's get it done. Mayra Zamora from Corpus Christi. She's the muralist.
Mayra is just the sweetest woman on this earth. Love her to death. If you guys have seen photos of me from Dia de los Muertos, you know, she was one of the people really taking care of me. I've known her since I went on Domingo Live. So yes, she's an amazing Mayra.
Her partner in crime, Monica, is the other muralist. We have, we try to get together once a month and have dinner, and we just talk about everything. And it's like, what am I going through? How can I help you? What do we need to do? Like, what's inspiring you? And just to hear artists speak, and they have nothing to do with food, but just to sit there and hear like, oh, I want to do this and think of this and the colors and everything. And I'm thinking, man, you just leave like inspired. You know? Melissa Rojas here, Chasing Camila. She's very, she works. That girl is hustle. She knows what she wants. She sets goals. We talk about like, well, Vianney, I want to do this. How can I do this? Or I tell her, Melissa, what do you think? And she's very motivating, very go get them. And I love those kind of women. Like, I want to do this. How can I figure it out? How can I make it work? Because if you don't do it, someone else will.
Yes.
Someone else will.
Yeah, the muse of creativity will find someone else who will put it out into the world. It's almost like a lot of the times we get very possessive about the things we create or the things we want to create. But at the end of the day, it's not ours until you put it out.
Until we put it out.
And so...
And why not you?
Yeah, why not you? Why not now?
Your voice is important. Your story is important. Put it out. We need more of that. I want every Latina sharing. I want every cocinera sharing. I want all your recipes, all your memories. I want it all. Like, there's enough sol para todos.
Yes. And so for anybody who's wanting to find these people, we will put them in the description of the podcast so that you guys can go follow those people's socials. We want to expand the comunidad. We want you guys to continue to share and just really uplift these creators that are obviously uplifting other creators out in the field, different fields. And so just to wrap up the episode, because we're at the end.
Yes, it went by so fast.
I am really wanting to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, which is, what is life accordion to you?
Comida, the smells, the sizzle of the comal, the chiles, everything is comida for me. So I think comida is everything for me. It's family, it's, you know, friends, it's together, it's communication. It's just always, it's a bowl of beans.
The frijoles of life.
So,
well, thank you so much. And thank you guys once again for joining us on a fun-filled episode of Accordion to Me, life changed by a bowl of frijoles. And as always, puro amor, puro besos, mwah, puro comida. Bye. Thank you for listening to Accordion to Me. The team behind this week's episode includes mixing and editing by Juan Pablo Diaz,
Theme music by Rodrigo Montalvo, produced by Javi G from MD Media. In-person recordings were done at the Podify Studios and remotely through Riverside FM. Accordion to Me is distributed through Anchor, and you can stream Accordion to Me wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm your host and executive producer, Veronique Medrano. Puro amor, puro besos, puro Tex-Mex.